Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea posts its highest yet number of new coronavirus cases for a single day at more than 2,200. Some experts are calling for even stricter social distancing, possibly even a curfew. As South Korea and the U.S. prepare to start their military exercises, North Korea is protesting the drills. It says the allies will face a constant security crisis and is not answering scheduled phone calls from the South. And as the South Korean economy added more than 500,000 new jobs last month compared to a year earlier, jobs actually declined in retail and restaurants. Those businesses still barely holding on. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea continues to see a strong recovery in jobs. Not in every sector, though. Last month, shops and restaurants had almost 200,000 fewer employees than they did a year earlier. Economists say a recovery in jobs there will depend on progress in the vaccine campaign. So far, only around 15% of the population is vaccinated fully. Kim Sung-min reports.
South Korea in July managed to add 542,000 more jobs compared to a year earlier, despite the fourth wave of COVID-19. Strong exports and the base effect drove up overall job growth, especially in healthcare and social services, transportation and storage, and construction. But with the ongoing pandemic, the food and retail industry in July lost 198,000 workers on year.
Some sectors like restaurants are still struggling, especially under the toughest restrictions. The tables are empty a lot of the time, and business owners have let some workers go, adding to the number of people looking for work.
53-year-old Jung Jong-gil, a restaurant owner in Seoul, is one of them. He laid off 8 workers at his restaurant, and now there's just him and 1 employee left.
I do the cooking and serving all day by myself. Sometimes there are 2, including me, and I started driving a taxi recently to make extra money.
The layoff was unavoidable for Jung, as sales at his restaurant plummeted by more than 90% compared to 2019. Jung says for small business owners like himself, the job growth figure feels like it's from somewhere else entirely.
Of course, I can't feel the improvement. It's just like a completely different story for me.
Experts say that vaccinations could help boost employment across all sectors.
Scientists now believe that with the Delta variant, complete herd immunity is now impossible, but you can have normal economic activities if enough people, especially in the vulnerable groups like the older people, are protected with the vaccine.
Such an effect is already being seen in some countries with high vaccination rates. Canada and the U.S., which have fully vaccinated more than 50% of their population, have both seen job growth, especially in the private sector. The U.S. added 380,000 more jobs in leisure and hospitality. Experts advise that vaccination will reduce uncertainty from the fourth wave of infection. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's shipbuilders continued to hold the #1 spot in terms of orders in July for the 3rd month in a row. Also, as the industry recovers, cumulative orders since the start of the year were the highest since 2008. In July, according to Clarkson Research, Korean shipyards won orders worth some 1.8 million compensated gross tons. That's around 45% of all orders placed worldwide. China was in a close second for the month with 1.77 million CGT, and Japan was third. The South Korean government has decided to extend some tax cuts for a few more years to help clinics and hospitals in the pandemic. It's also sticking with tax cuts for first-time home buyers. Ji-young has the details.
The Ministry of Public Administration and Security has announced some planned amendments to local taxes. To help overcome COVID-19, the government has extended the deductions on property and acquisition taxes for medical institutions for another 3 years. And there'll be an extra reduction of 10 percentage points for those hospitals that treat infectious diseases. Also, to help more people get onto the property ladder, the government will extend the current local tax deductions for first-time buyers for another 2 years. The 100% deduction in acquisition tax for houses costing less than $86,000 will also be extended by another 3 years. The government is also reforming how property acquisition tax is assessed. Starting 2023, the acquisition tax will be calculated based on the actual sale price of the house in order to better reflect the property value. Until now, the value of the property was subject to possible manipulation as it has been calculated based on whichever is higher out of the standard market price or price of the property reported to the government office. To support certain socially vulnerable groups, the government will also extend the deductions on acquisition and property taxes for another 3 years for those groups. This is also the case for educational facilities, including schools, lifelong education institutions, and public job training organizations. The revised bill will be submitted to the National Assembly by the end of September. 엄지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
The de facto head of Samsung Group, Lee Jae-yong, will be released from prison on parole Friday morning, almost 7 months after he was sent back to prison, sentenced in a bribery case involving former President Park Geun-hye. He's one of 810 prisoners granted parole, as this is the custom for National Liberation Day, August 15th. This could help Samsung Electronics speed up some of its major investment plans and M&A projects. For more on this, we have our own Min Soo-kyun here in the studio today. Welcome back, Soo-kyun.
Thank you.
Well, so the Justice Ministry has decided to grant parole to the Vice Chairman of Samsung Electronics, Lee Jae-yong. This is a controversial decision, it has to be said. How did the government decide to do this?
Well, Devon, Samsung Group heir Lee Jae-yong was granted parole on Monday after a long meeting by the Justice Ministry's parole committee. He will be released on Friday morning at 10 a.m. The ministry explained that his parole was decided after considering the economic situation both home and abroad. But there's been a mixed response to Monday's decision. The business community welcomed Lee Jae-yong's parole, saying that it was necessary for the economy, especially at a time when swift decisions have to be made amid a global chip shortage and an ongoing pandemic. However, labor and civic groups disagreed, saying that the billionaire received preferential treatment.
Okay, so ultimately the government decided it was in the national interest to have Lee Jae-yong out of prison. Still, he won't be able to go back to work as normal.
That's correct. Since this is a parole and not a pardon, he will be barred from running Samsung Group for the time being. This is because he's still subject to a 5-year employment restriction, which was imposed by the Justice Ministry this year after he was found guilty in January's retrial. So he'll need a special exemption from the ministry if he wants to return to the office and make overseas business trips. Also, it will be quite hard for him to immediately get back to work and fully concentrate on running the company because he still faces 2 other legal battles. One relates to the controversial merger of 2 Samsung affiliates in 2015, JL Industries and Samsung C&T, which is believed to have served as a key step toward his succession. He's also expected to face trial this month for his alleged use of propofol, a strictly controlled sedative.
So Lee Jae-yong won't quite be back at work, not yet at least, but it sounds like this can only be good for the company. It'll help him get involved in key decisions, like some major investments in the chip business that Samsung is planning.
That's correct. This is because key decisions on such huge investments can only be made by Lee Jae-yong himself, given the corporate structure of the company. So once Samsung de facto leaders out, decisions on major investment and M&A deals can be carried out faster and easier. There have been concerns that his absence could be slowing Samsung Electronics in the global high-tech chip race. Its rival TSMC, the world's largest chip maker, accounting for 54% of the global foundry revenue last year, plans to spend $100 billion over the next 3 years in a bid to expand its chip manufacturing capacity. Meanwhile, Intel Corporation announced plans to jump into the foundry business and spend up to $20 billion to build 2 factories in Arizona. So it's also in talks to buy Global Foundries, the world's 3rd largest foundry company as well. And if that's the case, then it'll be a very difficult situation for Samsung Electronics. And to stay competitive, industry watchers say that Samsung Electronics should be speeding up investment to close the gap with its foundry rivals.
In this situation, semiconductor manufacturing companies need to actively invest and make bold decisions quickly. In this sense, Lee Jae-yong's parole is expected to be helpful in making investment decisions, even if it's difficult for him to directly participate in management.
Well, Soo-kyun, the memory chip business is obviously huge for Samsung. It's huge for South Korea as a whole, making up a lot of the country's exports. And the numbers you're talking about there in the tens and hundreds of billions, it's quite a big deal. How's the chip industry doing overall?
Well, South Korea's supremacy in the memory chip market has come under challenge. Last year, SK hynix and US-based Micron Technology announced the development of cutting-edge technologies of DRAM and NAND flash memory chips. It appears that Samsung Electronics may be losing its competitive edge as smaller rivals develop advanced memory chips. But an expert here says that's not really the case.
It's true that there are concerns Samsung Electronics may be lagging behind its competitors in memory chip technology. But just developing advanced chips is not enough. Mass production technology is also important in the memory chip business. And since Samsung is still ahead in terms of technical skills and production scale, it's hard to say that it's losing its lead in the industry.
Well, Soo-kyun, of all these big investment plans we're talking about here, in May, Samsung announced that it's investing $17 billion to build a chip plant in the U.S. Do we know what's happening with that?
Well, Devin, I talked to Samsung Electronics about the $17 billion investment plan they have. But for now, nothing has been decided, not even the location of the U.S. chip factory. But it's widely expected that Lee Jae-yong's return will help finalize the plan, as the project is seen as a move by Samsung to counter the world's top foundry player, TSMC.
Upon his return, Samsung will likely decide on the location of its U.S. chip factory and plan how to remain competitive in the global foundry business.
Lee Jae-yong's parole is likely to speed up other pending investment decisions as well, such as Samsung SDI's plan to build a battery factory in the U.S. Hopes are also running high that his parole could help solve potential problems with the supply of Moderna vaccines amid delayed shipments from the U.S. biotech company. Samsung Biologistics is expected to deliver its first batch of Moderna vaccines manufactured at its local plant this month after signing a deal with the U.S. pharmaceutical company.
Well, Soo-kyun, this story, Lee Jae-yong's release on parole, has been making headlines all around the world, and your thorough reporting today has helped us get a much better understanding of this story, so we appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
For the first time, South Korea has reported more than 2,000 cases of COVID-19 in a single day. As case numbers keep rising, the authorities are imposing stricter rules on nursing hospitals and certain other facilities where there have been so-called breakthrough infections. They're also urging people not to travel, especially for this upcoming 3-day weekend. Choi Won-jong reports.
The daily COVID-19 cases in South Korea topped the 2,000 mark for the first time on Wednesday. Due to the high number of cases, Seoul Metropolitan Government said on Wednesday that the city might face hospital bed shortages. Only 484 of Seoul's almost 2,000 hospital beds are still available.
The number of COVID-19 patients in nursing hospitals and centers has dropped significantly compared to the third wave due to vaccination's effect. However, recently there have been breakthrough cases from such facilities, so we plan to toughen the measures.
Since the beginning of July, the areas under level 3 or below allow those who have been vaccinated to visit nursing homes and hospitals. But starting today, any visits must be strictly non-contact. Regular PCR tests will also be conducted at the facility on the level 4 once every week and once every 2 weeks for areas under level 3. The health authorities are also urging the public to stay at home during the 3-day holiday on National Liberation Day this weekend to prevent further spread of infections across the country. Meanwhile, President Moon Jae-in said on Wednesday that the daily cases exceeding 2,000 mark is concerning. Moon asked for the public's cooperation again, stressing that the government is trying its best to slow spread of the virus. 최원정, 아리랑 뉴스.
And with new cases at an all-time high, some experts are calling for even stricter social distancing. They're suggesting that restaurants go takeout only, and some even want a curfew. Shin Ye-eun has this report.
South Korea on Wednesday added more than 2,200 new cases of COVID-19, the highest daily tally recorded since the start of the pandemic. And authorities say the number is likely to climb even higher. This comes amid the Greater Seoul area having been under level 4, the highest level of social distancing for more than a month now. Most other parts of the country are under level 3. And some health experts told Arirang that the current measures must be strengthened to tackle the fourth wave of the pandemic. Because this time, the Delta variant is fueling new cases.
The number of new cases isn't going down because the current social distancing system being used now doesn't factor in the Delta variant.
The proportion of Delta virus among all viruses is 70% already. Maybe next week we'll see 80%. In 2 weeks' time, we'll see 90%.
Experts suggested even stronger measures. One expert suggested enforcing a strict curfew system from midnight to 4 a.m.
People get together in other places and enjoying their lives after 10 p.m. So if the curfew is performed, then those kind of violating activities will be reduced.
Experts also suggested that restaurants and cafes only provide takeout or delivery services, and the government should advise more people to work from home. They also said vaccination is key to fighting the fourth wave of the pandemic.
Getting vaccinated doesn't fully protect you from being infected with the Delta variant, but if you receive 2 vaccine shots, you can be protected with prevention rates as high as 60 to 80%. That's why it is important to get vaccinated.
Authorities on Wednesday said they will continue to monitor the number of daily cases and determine whether the current social distancing scheme should be strengthened. Shin Ye-eun, Arirang News.
South Korea's vaccine campaign has run up against delays in shipments from vaccine maker Moderna. So people who were supposed to get their second shot next week will get a text message tomorrow with the new schedule. According to the KDCA, around 11.5 million people were going to get their second doses starting next week, which would be 3 or 4 weeks after their first shot. But that'll be pushed back to an interval as long as 6 weeks. Moderna this week had said it can only deliver half of the 8.5 million doses it pledged for this month. But this won't affect people getting their first dose this month. With this latest delay, South Korea's initial goal of achieving herd immunity by late October is expected to be delayed by about 2 weeks. In other news, North Korea is sending more blunt warnings to South Korea and the U.S. over the Allies' joint military drills that start next week. Preparations for those are now underway. In protest, the North is refusing to answer calls on the communication lines that were recently restored. For more, we have our Kim Dami on the line. Dami, what's the North saying about the drills now?
Devin, North Korea is now warning that it will make Seoul and Washington, quote, feel a security crisis every minute. And this morning, Kim Yong-chol, the vice chairman of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Central Committee, issued a statement through the North's Silla media, arguing that the South Korean authorities have rejected the opportunity to reverse the situation. Kim also said that Pyongyang has no choice as long as Seoul and Washington persist in what he called confrontation. On Tuesday, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of the regime's leader, also denounced what she called an act of betrayal by the South Korean authorities, warning that the two allies will pay the price. When asked to comment on Kim Yo-jong's remarks, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said Tuesday that Washington harbors no hostile intent toward Pyongyang, and he insisted that the joint exercises are purely defensive in nature.
Dami, the North also ignored another scheduled call from the South this morning on the communication line that they recently restored, and this would appear to be another form of protest. Tell us about that.
Sure, Devin. Again, no answer from the North. The two Koreas should have carried out their second call of the day at the top of the hour, but their regular daily phone calls have not taken place since Tuesday afternoon now. Seoul and Pyongyang have carried out two phone calls a day at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. since July 27th, when they restored their communication lines a year after they were cut off. Now, there are concerns that the regime might make some provocative moves, like test firing submarine-launched ballistic missiles. But the prevailing opinion at the moment is that the North will not do that right away, given the crisis it's dealing with at home, including food shortages and flood damage. Seoul's Unification Ministry is reiterating that escalation of military tension on the Korean peninsula benefits no one, and has once again called on the North to return to dialogue at an early date for peace and stability on the Korean peninsula, as well as for the development of cross-border relations. That's all I have. Back to you, Devin.
All right, our Kim Dami on top of the North Korea situation. Thank you for that report. In other news, the South Korean city of Gyeongju was chosen by Time magazine as a must-visit location. The city is often described as an open-air museum, but it also has a fantastic indoor museum that has thousands of artifacts from the Silla kingdom more than 1,000 years ago. Our culture correspondent Kim Bo-kyung takes us there.
The ancient kingdom of Silla has a 1,000-year history lasting from 57 BC to 935 AD. 350,000 artifacts from that period can be found at the Gyeongju National Museum. Time magazine specifically mentioned how the museum, one of the 13 regional branches of the National Museum of Korea, has been refreshed after its makeover by Seoul design outfit Taeyang Studio. Instead of dull gray floor, the museum has been brightened up by warm wooden walls and flooring.
Under our ceiling, inspired by Korea's traditional hanok housing, are Silla artifacts and earthenware on pillars. They aren't behind glass, so visitors can get a closer look at their textures and colors.
I really wanted to prove that Silla's traditional aesthetic could still inspire us today. And we also wanted the museum to function as a healing space where people can come and rest, not only enjoy the artifacts of the museum, but also enjoy the landscape of Gyeongju area.
The interior design helps highlight the real jewels of the museum, the artifacts. The most noteworthy are the gold crowns. Kings in the 5th to mid-6th century were called 마립간s, and to strengthen their authority, they would use gold for a wide range of ornaments. Intricately wrought gold crowns show the Silla people's excellent craftsmanship and aesthetic sensibility.
Out of 6 gold crowns, we are housing 3 from Cheonmacheong, Kumgwancheong, and Kyodong tombs, and the rest are in the National Museum of Korea.
Another secret place to visit is the museum storage area. Museum storage areas are usually off limits, yet Gyeongju National Museum has opened up its storage area, letting visitors get a peek at rows and rows of rusting relics and imagine the stories behind them. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The athletes who competed at the Tokyo Olympics are returning to their home countries with their gold, silver, and bronze medals. But many of them will have other prizes awaiting them, having made their countries proud. And this can include large amounts of cash, pensions, even cars and homes. Lee Jae-yong reports.
Making a podium in the Olympics can mean even more than glory. In some countries, it means a jackpot, literally. Singapore gives out the most cash, more than $700,000 for every gold. That's 20 times the price in the US. Malaysia also stands out. It gives more for a bronze than Australia or Canada give for gold. The gold prize in the Philippines ended up much bigger this year than the official amount. Weightlifter Hidilyn Diaz is the first gold medalist in her country's history. She reportedly received around $600,000 along with 2 homes and free flights for life on AirAsia. China, though, does not allow cash prizes, citing the risk of corruption. And Russian athletes get a pension, but officially they were not able to represent their country or play their national anthem because Russia was previously found to have engaged in systematic doping. South Korea's podium prize might be the most practical. In addition to financial compensation, male winners are given an exemption from military service. That's happy news for archer Kim Jae-duk and gymnast Shin Jae-han. And South Korea's archers will get an extra prize from their longtime sponsor, Hyundai Motor Group. An-san is getting around $600,000 for her Triple Crown. Kim Jae-duk with 2 gold medals, $350,000. Others will get half of that each. And of course, they will all get a nice new car. Prizes are given also to those who did not make the podium but who still made history. Those include swimmer Hwang Seon-woo, who broke the record for Asia, high jumper Woo Sang-hyuk, who set a new national record, and the volleyball team who demonstrated the Olympic spirit. 이강은, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.